Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, to our brethren in Georgia, in Peach Island, in Mexico, Spain, Africa, to the United Kingdom, and to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 25 on the subject, the 12 figurative months. And to begin our study, I would like to read track number 5, page 26. It says, symbolical or literal, which? Only when this question is rightly answered will we have the correct interpretation to unlock this great symbolical treasure house of truth. And in track number 5, page 41, it says, for if every term is not symbolical, how shall we differentiate those which are from those which are not? And how shall we know by which to define the truth? So, when we study symbolical prophecy, according to that reading, every term must be symbolical. And more particularly, for subject, the 12 figurative months, or the 12 symbolical months, by which such subject is attached on the 5th trumpet, recorded on Revelation 9, verses 5 and 6. Now let us read again, track number 5, page 73 and page 74. Revelation 9, verses 5 and 6. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. seeing that the locusts are symbolical of the followers of Christ after the crucifixion, and that they were commanded not to resist their enemies. The 5 months, therefore, began at that time. And seeing, furthermore, that death does not as yet flee any man, but still reigns over all, the 5 months are in consequence figurative time, and extend from the crucifixion to a time when death shall flee from some men, that is, to the time when some will be made invulnerable to death. Now, only in the subject, the 7 trumpets, by which the shepherd's rod plainly told us in tract number 5, page 34, saying, fulfilled prophecies are seen therefore to be employed by the scriptures only as groundwork for that part of prophecy which is yet to be fulfilled. So, in this study, more particularly to the 5th trumpet, let us distinctly separate the groundwork and the particular object in view. The prophecy which is yet to be fulfilled. On page 32, in tract number 5, it says, the statements which must shortly come to pass in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter, Revelation chapter 4, verse 1, go to say that the revelation is given with the one particular object in view of showing the things lying not behind but ahead of John's time, with reference being made only incidentally to the past, in order to lay the necessary foundation upon which to build the future. Now, first of all, the shepherd's rod made it so plain that the word hereafter is pointing directly to 1844. Now, I would like to read. It says, 2SR, page 191. Therefore, the word hereafter in chapter 4, verse 1, means from the time of the vision, pointing forward to 1844. Therefore, the particular object in view must find its fulfillment from 1844 onwards. But undoubtedly, it is even more definitely applied in the period of the judgment that pertains to the living rather than in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. And that is the main reason why the promise, according to 2TG, number 12, page 30, saying, the revelation, therefore, is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. Of course, the only way that we could be able to understand the entire book of Revelation must be at the time when Jesus Christ himself will bestow such understanding. Because that book is called the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, the most important part of our subject is concerning the fulfillment of that predicted event when God will made someone or some men to be invulnerable to death. According to track number 5, page 73 and page 74. So let us study first the groundwork and then the particular object in view. Now, the second divine principle is that according to track number 5 on page 32 and page 35, I would like to read first track number 5, page 32. This basic truth that each period of destruction follows only after a corresponding period of sealing is corroborated by the fact that the symbolical locus which came up at the sounding of the fifth trumpet hurt only those men which had not the seal of God in their foreheads. All this shows not only that each trumpet follows its sealing period, but also that the nature of the trumpets reveals the punishment of those who failed to receive the seal in their particular periods. In page 35, it says, naturally then, the first seal must precede the first trumpet. The second seal must precede the second trumpet, and so on, like the needle and the shuttle, rather than all seven seals must precede all 7 trumpets. Now, the mere fact that the 5th trumpet in track number 5 on page, let us read the statement given by the chairperson. Page 79. Track number 5, page 79. It says, the flood, first trumpet, the Exodus movement, second trumpet, the giving of the Old Testament scriptures, third trumpet, the church going into captivity, fourth trumpet, Christ's first advent and subsequent events, fifth trumpet. So the fifth trumpet commenced on the first advent of Jesus Christ. But how about the fifth seal? The corresponding seal. Let us read 2SR page 221. It says, summary of commencement and termination of seals. The first seal covers the entire period from Adam to the flood. The second from the flood to Abraham. The third from Abraham to Christ. The fourth from Christ to 1500 AD. The fifth from 1500 AD to 1755. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. The occurrence in the past is contrary to the proper application of the subject, the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. Because, accordingly, the 5th seal must precede the 5th trumpet. But historically, the 5th trumpet precedes the 5th seal, contrary to the proper application of the subject, the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. Then there is no other safe conclusion that the occurrence in the past is not the particular object in view, but rather it is only the groundwork employed by the scriptures. Brothers and sisters, employed by the scriptures so that to build the necessary foundation concerning the future events. Now let us read the Bible. Revelation chapter 8. Revelation chapter 8 verse 13. It says, Revelation chapter 8 verse 13. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. Now, if the subject, the 7 trumpets, every term must be symbolical, as stated in track number 5, page 41. Then for sure, the earth mentioned here in Revelation chapter 8 verse 13 must be symbolical. It could not be literal earth. During the first advent of Jesus Christ, we know that Jesus Christ came to ancient Palestine. Now let us read tract number 5. Page 45. It says, tract number 5, page 45. This is borne out by the prophet's words, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth, ye that go down to the sea, where the world originated, Palestine, and all that is therein. Isaiah 42, verse 10. So the sea mentioned in the second trumpet, in Revelation chapter 8, verses 8 and 9, represent ancient Palestine. Therefore, brothers and sisters, Palestine never symbolized by the earth. Palestine, in the subject of the trumpets, symbolizes the sea. According to this reading, tract number 5, page 44 and page 45. And that is another reason that we can firmly establish that the occurrence in the past is not the particular object in view. Because if that occurrence in the past is the particular object in view, now where is the groundwork? And secondly, it is illogical that the particular object in view was fulfilled even before the book of Revelation was written. The book of Revelation was written in 96 AD. And for sure at that time, Jesus Christ were already ascended to heaven. And the very words of Angel Gabriel says that whatever the particular object in view of the vision in the book of Revelation, it must be hereafter. And the shepherd's rod made it so plain. It points forward to 1844. And there is no other nation symbolizes by the earth, points unmistakably to the United States of America. Now, I would like to read the Great Controversy, 440. It says here, the Great Controversy. What nation of the New World was in 1798 rising into power, giving promise of strength and greatness, and attracting the attention of the world? That is pointing to the symbolical earth. The application of the symbol admits of no question. One nation, and only one, meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. The Great Controversy, page 440. 40. Now, let us focus our attention, brothers and sisters, to the last three trumpets by which the shepherd declared clearly that the last three trumpets are woo trumpets. Track number 5. Let's read the statement. Track number 5 on page, it says here, where the shepherd's rod made it so plain. Page 58. The last three of the 7 trumpets, being woo trumpets, unlike the first 4, some great change obviously is to take place between the first 4 and the last 3. Let us distinctly separate then the great change, which is the groundwork, and the great change, which is the particular object in view. The shepherd's rod is very plain that there must be something happen, great change, between the first 4 trumpets and the last 3 trumpets. So what is the great change between the first 4 trumpets and the last 3 trumpets in the groundwork? So that we could understand the great change to take place in the particular object in view. Now let us read track number 5. Track number 5, page 74 and page 75. During the 5 figurative months, the locusts were commanded to torment those who had not the seal of God, but not to kill them. This command implies that after the expiration of this period, the killing restriction will cease, and that from them on the wicked will be killed rather than tormented only. At that time, the 4 angels of Revelation 9 verse 15 will have prepared themselves for to slay the 3rd part of men. Then it says, these several linked facts present a solid chain of evidence that in the Christian era, during the 5 figurative months, God has deferred His vengeance to grace. Hence it follows inescapably that such Christians as executed the death penalty upon those who disagreed with them were working against Christ rather than for Him. For as Christians, the locusts, they were commanded not to kill, but to bless, even those who despitefully use them. Indeed, to him who would smite them on the one cheek, they were to turn the other cheek. And if he should take away their cloak, they were to let him have their coat also. Luke chapter 6, verse 28 and 29. After the expiration of the 5 figurative months of restriction, during which they were not to kill, some will be made invulnerable to death for the finishing of the gospel work, and will, if necessary, to the discharging of the responsibility, be glad to die, but cannot. Now, before tracing the historical events, I would like to read first track number 3. In track number 3, page 65, it says, "So it must be with the spiritual harvest, which otherwise would not be illustrated by the literal. Do not regard lightly the wisdom of God. His illustrations are perfect." Track number 3, page 65. And also the statement in 1 SR 232, it says, "As God is infallible, all His works spell perfection, even to one jot or one tittle." So our Almighty God, 1 SR 232, being an infallible God, all His works spell perfection, even to one jot or one tittle. That all His illustrations are perfect. When? That is when the appointed time are come. I remember the statement, 1 SR 244. It says, "It is wonderful to note the inspiration of the scriptures. Perfect they are when their appointed time is come." 1 SR 244. So, if the application made does not exactly fit, perfectly portrayed the description, then the only admissible conclusion is that it is the groundwork. It is not the particular object in view. Now let's read track number 5. Page 74. It says, track number 5, page 74. "The fact, too, that the trumpets are figurative is another evidence that these 5 months are figurative time. But why should this period in which the locusts, the Christians, have power to torment men, be limited to 5 months? It will be noted that the 144,000 are called the first fruits, denoting that they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest, the commencement of the time to separate the tares from the wheat. To the parable of the harvest, then we must go for the full explanation of the 5 months period. In track number 3, the harvest, the time from the baptism of Christ to the close of provision, is shown to be illustrated by 12 figurative months, 6 from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion, 5 from the crucifixion to the ingathering of the first fruits, the 144,000, Revelation 14 verse 4, leaving 1 month for the ingathering of the second fruits, the great multitude, Revelation 7 verse 9. Track number 5, page 74. Now, the given clue is the first 6 figurative months. From Christ's baptism to his crucifixion. That is exactly 1,260 days. Now, of course, brothers and sisters, no one would disagree that 6 is greater than 5. And 5 is lesser than 6. Therefore, we need to follow the exact illustration of such numbers, because Christ's illustrations are perfect. Now, I would like to show to you, brothers and sisters, very simple illustration. 144. Diagram 144. Now, this is the given clue. Christ's baptism, October 16, 27 AD, up to Christ's crucifixion, April 16, 31 AD. That is exactly 1,260 days. 1,260 days. Here's another illustration. Diagram number 12. So, the first 6 figurative months from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion, 1,260 days. Now, it's easy to understand. 1,260 days divided by 6 equals 210. It is called 6 figurative months. Brothers and sisters, 6 figurative months. But the fact is that in the groundwork, only the period of time which is figurative, but not the months. Because the months are literal. October 16, literal October 16. April 16, literal April 16. The same with the occurrence. Baptism of Jesus Christ, literal baptism. Crucifixion of Jesus Christ, literal crucifixion. But we are dealing prophecy, symbolical prophecy. Every term must be symbolical. But thank God, in order to understand the particular object in view, God employed such historical event to serve as the groundwork. So to repeat again, it's easy to understand that each symbolical month contained 210 days. Because if you will multiply 210 times 6 equals 1,260 days. Let us put here. 210 times 6 equals 1,260 days. Now, in that given clue, brothers and sisters, then it's easy to determine the entire period of the 5 symbolical months. Brothers and sisters, so the entire period of the 5 symbolical months, then let us go back to 144. Diagram 144. Now, let us multiply 210 times 5. 210 times 5 equals 1,050 days. 1050 days. So the entire period of the 1,050 days, brothers and sisters, that is the entire period of the 5 figurative months. Now the groundwork, the type, the photograph, remember, I would like to read first. 1 SR 226. It says, the type themselves are not the true object, no more than a photograph is, but it is a representation which pictures an unmistakable evidence, the object in view. So the types, the photograph is not the true object. It is only a picture, a representation to the particular object in view with unmistakable evidence. 1 SR 226. Now, in the groundwork, from April 16, 31 AD, from crucifixion, you will count 1,050 days. Therefore, March 16, 33 AD, this is the expiration of the 5 symbolical months. The expiration of the 5 symbolical months. Therefore, from March 16, 33 AD, supposed to be, I would like to use the word supposed to be, at the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, brothers and sisters, the occurrence supposed to be, that is the time by which grace is ended. Because only in the period of the 5 symbolical months by which vengeance is deferred to grace. And secondly, on March 16, 33 AD, there are 210 days to the expiration of the 7 years or the 490 years given, allotted to the Jewish people. October 16, 34 AD, supposed to be, I would like to use the term, supposed to be in this period of time, there must be someone that had been made invulnerable to death. Yes, historically, according to the shepherd's rod, they desired to die. I would like to read tract number 5. Pages 75 and page 76. The experience of Christ's first disciples will explain why that after the expiration of the 5 months, men will desire to die but cannot. Despite great persecution against the faithful of the primitive Christian church, their vision of the world's great need urged them on to preach the gospel of Christ at the cost of their lives. And notwithstanding cruelest death awaiting them, they in faith and courage in God held the light of the gospel before the people are constantly as the sun holds its rays over the earth. I came into Asia, testifies the death-bound apostle, after what manner I have been with you at all seasons, serving the Lord with all humility of mind, and with many tears and temptations, which befell me by the lying in wait of the Jews. And now, behold, I know that ye all, among whom I have gone preaching the kingdom of God, shall see my face no more. Wherefore I take you to record this day, that I am pure from the blood of all men, for I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of God. And when we heard these things, both we and they of that place besought him not to go up to Jerusalem. Then Paul answered, What mean ye to weep and to break mine heart? For I am ready not to be bound only, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus. Acts 20 verse 18 and 19, verse 25 to 27, then Acts 21 verse 12 and 13. By preaching the name of Christ, the Christians in false time were indeed seeking death, esteeming it the greatest privilege and honor to die for him. They desired to do so if others might by their death obtain eternal life. But the fact is that they desired to die, but death did not flee from all of them. All of them died. Brothers and sisters, why? Because that is not the particular object in view. The very first one that experienced death is Stephen. October 16. Let us go first to our diagram in 100. October 16, 34 AD. So, this is the stoning of Stephen. Brothers and sisters, therefore, since it is the groundwork, this is the photograph, therefore we can easily understand that the statement, some will be made invulnerable to death after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, indicates that in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, there are still saints to die, but there are some that will be made invulnerable to death. And in the groundwork, only one portion that had been fulfilled. All of them died. And there is not even one that had been made invulnerable to death. And for sure, that is the fulfillment of Revelation 14:13. Now, I would like to read first the statement in symbolic code. Let me see. It says here, 12 symbolic code. Number 2, pages 11 and page 12. 12 symbolic code, number 2, pages 11 and page 12. Revelation 9, verse 6. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. This verse partially fulfilled in the days of the apostles. Because after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, primary phase, the groundwork, the photograph, they desired to die. But the fact is that death did not flee from them. The very first one among the disciples of Jesus Christ that sacrificed his life is Stephen. October 16, 34 AD. 210 days after the 5 symbolical months did expire. And to repeat again, that is projecting the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, the commencement of the Great Tribulation. That we can easily understand that after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months on its final and perfect fulfillment, there must be only 210 days. Then the Great Tribulation begins. Now, I would like to read 12 symbolic code number 2, page 11 and 12. Focusing Revelation 9, verse 6. Is it not logical to believe, 12 symbolic code number 2, pages 11 and page 12. Is it not logical to believe that the reason these men could not die is that they are sealed by God? What else can make men live on and no one could kill them? Who other than God can give life? And do you suppose that God is going to extend the life of the wicked? He promises to do that only for the righteous. Those having the seal of God in their foreheads. Then these that seek death and cannot find it are God's people. They are to live on and on for eternity. At one time, they be made invulnerable to death. Our study today makes plain that it is during the 5th trumpet and before the sounding of the 6th trumpet. This is the portion by which some of the brethren says, it is not the writings of Lady Holder, 12 symbolic, the new codes, because it contradicts to the statement in track number 5. But in reality is that the trouble does not lie with the statement themselves, but the trouble lies because of their very limited understanding. I would like to read that statement, although at this time I will be focusing to the expiration of the 5 symbolical months. But for sure, this new codes is in perfect harmony with all other Shepherd's Rod publications. I would like to read a statement of 1 Symbolic Code number 4, page 5. It says, the trouble does not lie in the statements themselves, but rather in man's limited knowledge of the truth therein. So that is the only trouble, because of their limited knowledge of the truth portrayed in the statements. The same with the statement in 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 10. 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 10. The trouble does not lie in the aforenamed publications, but rather in the minds of those who read them. Now let's go back again to the reading. The only thing by which they can say that it is in contradiction, because the only knowledge that they had concerning the subject 7 trumpets is the occurrence on the earthly sanctuary or on the earth. While in reality, the particular object in view is in heaven. According to track number 5, on page 34, it says, in the main, however, the trumpets and the seals portray an event which is future from John's time and which takes place in heaven. Although they also portray kindred events. Of these related events, some are contributory and some are consequent to the main prophetic event. The former naturally precede and the latter naturally follow it historically. So, the subject, the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets, although it also portrays kindred events, the occurrence on this earth, and by the kindred events, some of these kindred events are related events, and some are contributory, and some are consequent to the main prophetic event, by which the main prophetic event is the event that takes place in heaven. According to that reading in track number 5, page 34. So, we will explain it later, brothers and sisters. But to repeat again, let us focus our whole attention to the expiration of the 5 symbolical months. Of course, 5 months must be less than 6 months. And to repeat again, when God uses an illustration, it is always perfect, because God is infallible God. So the given clue is the first 6 figurative months, by which the entire period of the 6 figurative months is 1,260 days. In order for us to ascertain clearly how many days each one parabolic month, then let us divide 1,260 divided by 6 equals 210. Then if you will multiply 210 times 6 equals 1,260 days. If it is literal 6 months, then it is only 180 days, because each month, the literal month, consists only 30 days. 6 times 30 equals 180. But the mere fact that the first 6 figurative months consist of 1,260 days, then it is not literal. It is symbolical. But the absolute fact is that only the period of time which is symbolical. but the month itself are literal. Literal October 16, literal April 16. Brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to go to the diagram of BT Hunter in that 12 figurative months. So here you can see September 16. Of course, this is April, May, June, July, August, September. September 16, and then you can see the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. So it is not in 1929 because here, in the days of BT Hunter, it is still future in the days of BT Hunter. Fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. You see, brothers and sisters? You see this arrow and the arrow here, and then the end of harvest, judgment. When? October 10. What is October 10? Day of Atonement. It did not say the commencement of the harvest. Can we enlarge this one? The end of harvest. What is harvest? Cleansing of the sanctuary. Therefore, the end of harvest, the end of the cleansing of the sanctuary, the final day of atonement. Therefore, that expiration of the 5 symbolical months precede the final day of atonement. That is very plain in this diagram. You can see here, 7, October, 10, end of harvest, judgment. And you can see here, brothers and sisters, fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Meaning, this is pertaining to the harvest that pertains to the living. Now, let us go back first to 2SR 221. Let's read 2SR page 221. Hoping God would help us. Let us pray earnestly so that we could comprehend this very important subject. Ezekiel 2SR 221. Summary of commencement and termination of seals. The first seal covers the entire period from Adam to the flood. The second seal from the flood to Abraham. The third seal from Abraham to Christ. The fourth seal from Christ to 1500 AD. The fifth seal from 1500 AD to 1755. The sixth seal from 1755 AD to the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Now let us focus to the sixth seal. Brothers and sisters, sixth seal. So this is the sixth seal. The shepherds had called it termination. Therefore, the sixth seal terminated in the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. So that is the termination of the sixth seal. This is the entire period of the sixth seal, according to our reading in 2SR 221. Now let us enumerate one by one because it says from 1755. November 1, 1755, Lisbon, earthquake. Then the darkening of the sun, May 19, 1780. Then May 21, 1780. The moon become blood. So this is earthquake. This is darkening of the sun. Moon become blood. And then, November 13, 1833, the falling of the stars. The falling of the stars. It is called, brothers and sisters, kindred events, related events, contributory events, then consequent to the main prophetic event. What is the main prophetic event? The sealing under the sixth seal commenced in 1844. October 22, 1844. Who are they? To be sealed from 1844. The altar. This is the last seal that pertains to the dead, the altar. So, begin from the kindred events, related events, contributory events, then the consequent to the main prophetic event, the falling of the stars. Then, October 22, 1844, the main prophetic event. What is the main prophetic event? The sealing. Because that's what it means by seals. Sealing. The main prophetic event. The same with the subject of the trumpets. The main prophetic event is destruction. But concerning the sealing, or the seven seals, the main prophetic event is the sealing of God's people. For example, I would like to read 2 SR 215. 2 SR page 215. It says, as the six seals have reference to 6 periods in which the saints were sealed, so that is the main prophetic event concerning the subject, the 7 seals, sealing of God's people. The 7th must also apply to a sealing period, otherwise it cannot be called 7th seal. Now let's go back to our main subject. So let us go to the chart again, the chart of B.D. Hunter. So you see here, October 10, of course that is Day of Atonement, the end of harvest. Now let us read first track number 3. Page 42 and page 43. Track number 3, page 42 and page 43. In both of these parables, Christ is sounding the forewarning that the investigative judgment will take place in the time called harvest, which is the end of the world, the time in which the 2,300 days culminates. When does the 2,300 days culminate? October 22, 1844. That is the commencement of the harvest. But this one is not the commencement. That is the end part of the harvest. So, brothers and sisters, the term, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 is the commencement of the harvest that pertains to the living, and it will end on October 10, the end of harvest, judgment, and since October 10, Day of Atonement, the occurrence is taking place in the heavenly sanctuary, which is the main prophetic event of the subject, the trumpets study. Track number 5, page 34. Now, let us go back again to our subject, the expiration of the 5 symbolical months. Brethren, the statement in track number 5, let us go back again. On page 73 and page 74. Let's read again the statement. Seeing that the locusts are symbolical of the followers of Christ after the crucifixion, and that they were commanded not to resist their enemies, the 5 months therefore began at that time. But what 5 months began, brothers and sisters, on April 16, 31 AD, after the crucifixion, or from the crucifixion? Is it the particular object in view, or is it the groundwork? It must be the groundwork, because if that is the particular object in view, where is the groundwork? Second, if that is the particular object in view, it is contrary to the proper application of the prophecy, because the 5th trumpet commenced in 31 AD, whereas the 5th seal commenced in 1500 AD. In reality, in track number 5, page 79, it commenced from the birth of Christ, 4 BC. So it is contrary to the proper application, as stated by the shepherd's rod, that the 5th seal must precede the 5th trumpet. Track number 5, 32 and 34. Second, or third, if we will be saying, brothers and sisters, that that is the particular object in view, where are they that after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, they had been made invulnerable to death? All of them died. Another reason, brothers and sisters, that we need to ponder deeply, the particular object in view, Revelation 8:13, earth. And that earth must be symbolical earth. But that is ancient Palestine. In track number 5, 44 and 45, Palestine represent the sea. The sea mentioned in the 2nd trumpet represent Palestine. It will be confusing that in the 2nd trumpet, the sea or the Palestine represented by the sea, and then in the 5th trumpet, Palestine represented by the earth. God is not the author of confusion. God is a God of order. And the next point, brothers and sisters, is that Christ's illustrations are perfect. It cannot be construed that the 5 symbolical months is longer than the 6 figurative months. Because 6 is greater than 5. 6 is more than 5. 5 is less than 6. So the statement, brothers and sisters, here in tract number 5, page 73, I would like to read to you. Tract number 5, page 73. Seeing that the locusts are symbolical of the followers of Christ after the crucifixion, and that they were commanded not to resist their enemies, the 5 months therefore began at that time. When does the 5 months began? At the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. According to this reading, began at that time, but the groundwork, which is employed by the author of the scriptures to serve that prophecy that had been fulfilled as the groundwork. Fulfilled prophecies are seen, therefore, to be employed by the scriptures only as groundwork for that part of prophecy which is yet to be fulfilled. Or in other words, let us distinctly separate, brothers and sisters, the 12 figurative months, which is the photograph, and the 12 figurative months, which is the particular object in view. The type and the antitype. If it is a solving problem, it's easy to solve. If the first 6 figurative months is 1,260 days, then the remaining 6 must also be 1,260 days. Because there are only 12 months. Therefore, the entire 12 figurative months must be 7 years. The literal 12 months is only 1 year, but this is 12 figurative months. Or in the 70 weeks, the last 7 years, or 1 week, is the entire period of the 12 figurative months, which is the type, which is the photograph, which is the groundwork. By which, in that photograph, we can easily discern, brothers and sisters, that the great persecution will commence after the 7 years, antitypical 7 years will completely end. Now, I would like to read to you first, then we will go back to this reading. I know it is a deep study, brothers and sisters. Answerer number 2. Page 45. It says here, I will no longer be reading the verses, and you can read at your own leisure. Answerer number 2, page 45. Revelation 12, verse 13 to verse 17. So the quotation is Revelation 12, verse 13 up to verse 17. It says, nearly all Christians agree that the only tenable interpretation of the woman here mentioned is that she symbolizes the church, and the fact that she gave birth to the man-child, Christ, shows that she is therefore symbolical of the church in at least the Christian dispensation. Who give birth to Jesus Christ, the child, on His first advent. It is the Jewish church. And Jesus Christ was born, according to the shepherds, at least 30 years before the existence of the Christian dispensation. Let's read 2SR. Page 72. 2SR, page 72. The idea advanced that the woman is a symbol of the Christian church only, and the moon of the Jewish ceremonial system proves incorrect. The Christian church was founded about 31 AD, or not earlier than 27, at which time Christ began to preach, being 30 years of age. Therefore, the symbol points back at least 31 years before the beginning of the Christian church, for the woman church was travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. Thus it was that the Jewish church that brought forth the Son of God, and not the Christian. To SR, page 72. But the statement in answerer number 2, page 45. The man-child, which is Jesus Christ, the one who will give birth with that man-child, is the Christian church. The church in the Christian dispensation. Brothers and sisters. Therefore, it is pointing to the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, not the groundwork, because the groundwork, it is the Jewish church that gave birth to Jesus Christ. But the church that will give birth to Jesus Christ, in Revelation 12:13, according to the Shepherd's Rod, it must be the church in the Christian dispensation. Now, I would like to read first Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12 on verse 13. Revelation chapter 12 verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Whose woman that had been persecuted by the dragon? The woman that brought forth the man-child. On the first advent of Jesus Christ, who brought forth Jesus Christ? The Jewish church. Does the Jewish church had been persecuted by Satan? Now let us read tract number 12. Tract number 12, page 43. It says, tract number 12, page 43. To begin with, we see from this scripture that the woman left her vineyard, homeland Palestine, and went into the Gentile world after her child was born. That is, in her Christian period, when the dragon persecuted her through the instrumentality of the Jews. What church, what woman that had been persecuted by the dragon? The apostolic church, not the Jewish church. But rather, it is the Jewish church that had been used by the dragon as the instrument to persecute the woman. But the woman, which is the apostolic church, by which it was persecuted by the dragon, she did not brought forth Jesus Christ. Therefore, that prophecy is still in the future. And it is closely connected, brethren, to the subject, the Assyrian Confederacy, by which later on we will be dealing when World War II will be resumed. Now, let me read to you track number 14. Track number 14 on page 32. It says, the high points of this confederacy, some of which are still unfulfilled, fall into sequence thusly. Number 1, the overthrow of both ancient Israel and Syria by ancient Assyria as a divine judgment, especially upon Israel, for confederating against her own brethren, the kingdom of Judah. Isaiah 7 verse 2 and 9. Verse 2 to verse 9. Second, the birth of a man-child. Emmanuel, to a virgin, for a sign to the house of David. It is a very wonderful prophecy. The man-child is represent Emmanuel. So the shepherds have declared clearly in 12 symbolic code. Number 1, it says, 12 symbolic code number 1, page 5 and 6. 12 symbolic code number 1, page 5 and 6. Since, as has already been pointed out, Christ Emmanuel did not live in the time of such a confederacy, it must be that not only Israel, Syria, and Assyria are types, but Christ himself also a type. We learn that Emmanuel, meaning God with us, could represent only his true followers, the born-again Christians. So, in reality, brothers and sisters, there are a lot of subjects to study, but let us go back to our main subject. But I would like to give to you a short view. Let us distinctly separate the woman that will give birth to the man-child, which is the 144,000 living saints, represented by antitypical Emmanuel. According to the shepherd's rod, I would like to read 1 TG. 26. Here in 1 TG number 26, on pages 18 and 19, the pronoun she points to the daughter of Zion, Micah 4 verse 10. She is to bring forth her children while in the field, while in the Gentile lands. So it is the daughter of Zion. And she is to bring forth her children. And in 1 TG 49, on page 8, it says, 1 TG 49, page 8. Now, who could the children be? to be children of Zion, they must someday stand on Zion. They are therefore none other than the first fruits, of whom the Revelator says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. So they are the children of Zion, the 144,000, represented by the man-child, to be delivered by that woman, by which after the woman brought forth the man-child, the dragon persecuted the woman. Now let me read to you one SR. 152. 1 SR 152. As soon as the separation is finished, and Satan has lost out with his deceptive scheme, the church finds herself in a great conflict with the enemy. Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, those who are left, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The war against the woman is the blue law. One SR 152. We'll discuss that on the subject, the beast and its image, but that is very plain. The persecution against the woman is the blue Sunday law. The woman will be persecuted when? After she brought forth the man-child. So what does it mean? That the man-child was spiritually born. Now let us go back to our subject. Because our subject is talking about the persecution. Going back again, brothers and sisters, to track number 5. On page 73 and page 74, it says, seeing that the locusts are symbolical of the followers of Christ after the crucifixion, and that they were commanded not to resist their enemies, the 5 months therefore began at that time. And seeing furthermore that death does not as yet flee any man, but still reigns over all, the 5 months are in consequence figurative time, and extend from the crucifixion to a time when death shall flee from some men, that is, to the time when some will be made invulnerable to death. Now the statement, extend from the crucifixion, in reality, I would like to show to you. For example, this is the 6th figurative mass, October 16, 27 AD, ended on April 16, 31 AD. 6 months. Now, if we will be saying that the 5 figurative months up to this present time, that is the entire period of the 5 figurative months. We are now 2000, for example, 2020, then minus 31. 9, 11, 8, 9, 1,989 years? Would you think such illustrations are perfect? The 6 months only 1,260 days, whereas the 5 months 1,989 years? Our God knows number. Brothers and sisters, that's what not it means in that statement. Brothers and sisters, to repeat again, in the photograph, the 5 figurative months ended on March 16, 33 AD. Let us go back again to our diagram. So, from April 16, 31 AD, 210 times 5, 1,050 days, ended on March 16, 33 AD. Now, in this illustration, we can easily discern that the symbolical September 16 is March 16. But the absolute fact is that after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, 210 days later, or after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, instead that it is the wicked that will be killed, it was opposite. It is the righteous that had been killed, and that is Stephen. And not even one that had been made invulnerable to death. But that is only the groundwork. Because in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, the mere fact that the voice of inspiration used the word some, meaning at the time when there are some that had been made invulnerable to death, there are still saints to die. Because the word some, meaning not all. But in the groundwork, brothers and sisters, in the groundwork, persecution begins in October 1634 AD. In the groundwork. Therefore, it pictured out to the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, pictured with unmistakable evidence with that photograph, that from the time when the expiration of the 5 symbolical months expire, brothers and sisters, then we can easily understand 210 days after, the persecution will begin. What is the persecution? The Blue Sunday Law. It must be implemented. But what happened? Jesus Christ pleaded to God the Father. Stated in early writings, page 38. Why? Why Jesus Christ pleaded to God the Father? Because the remnant were not yet sealed. Why is it that they are called remnant? Because according to the shepherd's rod, in 1 SR 102, The definition of remnant is that which is left after the separation, removal, or destruction of a part. It says, what constitutes the remnant? And in 1 TG number 6, page 38, let us read again. 1 TG number 6, page 38, it says, it is obvious that they escape the destruction of these sinners in the church. Only the holy ones, those whose names are left written in the book, escape the destruction that falls upon the wicked in the church. Only they constitute the remnant, the ones that are left. Left what? Their names left written in the Lamb's book of life. So brothers and sisters, we can easily discern that the cleansing in the heavenly sanctuary takes place first before the cleansing on the earthly sanctuary. As stated in the Shepherd's Rod publications in tract number 3, page 53. It says, tract number 3, page 53, this startling revelation shows conclusively that the cleansing, according to Daniel 8:14, is first of the sanctuary in heaven and second of sanctuary on earth. What is the cleansing in the sanctuary in heaven? Blotting out of names. So the statement in tract number 3, on page 73 and 74, it says, being the day of atonement in type for both the dead and the living, this service of the earthly tabernacle therefore projects the day of atonement in its antitype, the cleansing of the sanctuary in heaven from the unworthy names in the books, and the cleansing of the church on earth from its unconverted and unstable members, thus bringing the time of clean books, clean church, and clean people. And look at the diagram again of B.T. Hothert. Expiration of the 5 symbolical months. The fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. And look at here, October 10. That is Day of Atonement. Then it says, the end of harvest. So, the 5 symbolical months expire prior to the final Day of Atonement, the blotting out of all names of the wicked. But pertaining to the living. Because the commencement is pertaining to the dead, the end part is pertaining to the living. And it is also revealed by the 40 figurative days, the antitypical 40, as stated in tract number 3, page 86. Now let us go back again, brothers and sisters, to the expiration of the 5 symbolical months. September 16. But it could not be literal. Because the shepherd's rod made it so plain. That must be symbolical. And we will show to you this diagram so that you can, in That study, brothers and sisters, the symbolical months and the literal months, all of them fall on 16. October 16, April 16, September 16. That is the given clue. October 16, 27 AD, Friday. April 16, 31 AD, Friday. Therefore, all of them must be Friday. Now, I would like to show to you in this number 12, slide 2. You see, brothers and sisters, this is literal months. October 16, November 16, December 16, January 16, February 16, March 16, April 16, May 16, June 16, July 16, August 16, September 16. The 12 literal months. Of course, October 16, which is Friday, that is pattern number 2. November 16, which is Friday, that's in pattern number 6. December 16, that is pattern number 3. January 16, pattern number 7. February 16, pattern number 4. March 16, pattern number 1. April 16, pattern number 6. May 16, pattern number 3. June 16, pattern number 7. July 16, pattern number 4. August 16, pattern number 1. And September 16, pattern number 5. But we are dealing symbolical. And the most important part is September 16. What is September 16? Symbolical September 16. March 16. And that is pattern number 1. So if you will say symbolical September 16, that must be March 16. Because if you will say symbolical September 16, but it is still September 16, that is not symbolical, that is literal. And March 16, which is Friday, that is pattern number 1. Only pattern number 1, but it's March 16, is Friday. Now, brothers and sisters, this proof is infallible and this proof is unmistakable. Impregnable evidence, because God showed it through two symbolization. March 16, Bible calendar, and seasonal calendar. Concerning seasonal calendar, we will show to you. In seasonal calendar, brothers and sisters, I would like to read answer it. Let's read. Answerer number 3. On pages 14 and 15. All the Gospels testify that Jesus was seized the same night he ate the Passover with his disciples. Matthew 26, verse 34, Mark 14, verse 30, Luke 22, verse 34. John states that immediately thereafter he was led away to Annas, John 18, verse 13. And Mark discloses that later that night he was brought before the chief priests and all the council. Mark 14, verse 54 to 55. And as soon as it was day, as all the accounts agree, he was arraigned finally before Sanhedrin to make the trial legal. The court could not, by Jewish law, convene before sunrise, the 12th hour, ancient time. To be exact, the time of the trial could not have been earlier than 11:50 a.m., ancient time, or 5:50 a.m., modern time. For the Passover week was observed from the 14th to the 21st day of the first month of the Hebrew year, beginning with the vernal equinox. Then the quotation is, March 2021, the time of the year when the day and the night are equal. Now, here another statement in answerer. Number 3. Answerer number 3 on page 11. It says, beginning its first month of the year with the first new moon at or after the vernal equinox, March 2021, it puts the 14th day that on which the Passover lamb was to be slain on April 3. Then it says, once for all is seen the utter impossibility of the Roman months having the slightest thing to do with fixing the time of either the Passover or the sheep offering, and thus not the slightest thing to do with reckoning the time of either the crucifixion or the resurrection of Christ. Now, brothers and sisters, for example, I would like to show to you the literal crucifixion of Jesus Christ on April 16, 31 AD. April 16, 31 AD. Now, can you show the new moon on 31 AD in the month of March? March 31 AD. So when does the new moon on? You see, new moon, March 11, not March 20. Historically, it utters the impossibility that you can trace exactly the crucifixion of Jesus Christ by the Roman months. In reality, 31 AD in Bible calendar, in Julian calendar, that was 58 AD. Now let us look at the new moon on April 58 AD. Where's the new moon? This is April 18? 11. April 11. You see, brothers and sisters? How about because in Julian calendar, April 16 fall on May 5. Now, we will count if that is 16 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Or either here. So, it utters the impossibility historically, brothers and sisters. From the time the new moon appeared, that is not April 1. But rather that seasonal, that March 20, that is April 1. Now let us go now to our diagram. the seasonal calendar. So, you see, March 20, this is April 1. Then March 21, April 2. We could send to you this seasonal calendar. Let us go to the last point. And you see, September 4, that is September 16. Brothers and sisters, it will never happen again that these two absolute signs given by God, the Bible calendar and the seasonal calendar, join together as one. September 4, 2020, in Bible calendar, that is March 16. Now let us look at the timeanddeath.com. September 4, Gregorian. September 4, 2020. You see, that is March 16. And that is Friday. This occurrence, brethren, it will take how many years? I think 5,837 years. Let us add 2020 plus 5,837. 7857. You see? It will be repeated again that September 4, Friday, by which in Bible calendar that is March 16, on 7857 AD. Never been happen again because the earth will last only 6,000 years from the fall of Adam. But look at 7,857 years to repeat the same occurrence. To let us know, brethren, that it will never happen again, brothers and sisters. Now, for example, in this study, brothers and sisters, as the photograph or the groundwork that had been revealed, brothers and sisters, then we can easily discern that September 4, 2020, that is the commencement of the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 in the heavenly sanctuary, by which that fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, let us go back to the diagram of B.T. Hotep. On October 10, that is the end of harvest, meaning the end of the cleansing of the sanctuary, the final day of atonement, which is revealed by 40 typical days. And that is on March 27, 2021. March 27, 2021. Now, let us now, brothers and sisters, from September 4, 2020, let us go to timeanddeath.com. September 4, 2020, let us add 210 days. So you will fall in April 2, 2021, which is in Bible calendar, that is October 16, 2022. Therefore, in April 2, 2021, this is the threatening of the blowing of the four winds that's supposed to be vengeance will be implemented at that time But Jesus Christ began to plead to God the Father, hold the four winds. Ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to go back again to the reading in 12 symbolic code. 12 symbolic code number 2. It says here, 12 symbolic code number 2, pages 11 and 12. Let us go back again to the reading. Is it not logical to believe that the reason these men could not die is that they are sealed by God? What else can make men live on, and no one could kill them? Who other than God that can give life? And do you suppose that God is going to extend the life of the wicked? He promises to do that only for the righteous, those having the seal of God in their foreheads. Then this that seek death cannot find it are God's people. They are to live on and on for eternity. And what time will they be made invulnerable to death? What time? Our study today may explain that it is during the fifth trumpet. During the fifth trumpet. What part of the fifth trumpet? That they will be made invulnerable to death. In the extension. Now let us go back again to track number 5. Brothers and sisters. Track number 5, page 73. It says, seeing that the locusts are symbolical of the followers of Christ, after the crucifixion, that they were commanded not to resist their enemies, the 5 months therefore began at that time. To repeat again, what 5 months that began at that time? The groundwork. So, this is the groundwork. April 16, 31 AD to March 16, 33 AD. 1,050 days. This is the period of the 5 months. But the type, the groundwork, and then 210 days after, the commencement of the persecution of the church, the stoning of Stephen. Now, brothers and sisters, let us now look at to the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy. Of course, it is April 16, pattern number 6. So the antitype must be April 16, 2019. But in Gregorian, that is October 20, 2017. Then we have 1,050 days. And it ends on September 4, 2020, by which that is symbolical September 16 in seasonal calendar, and that is symbolical March 16 in Bible calendar. Bible calendar, seasonal calendar. September 4, 2020. Now from September 4, 2020, you will count 210 days as illustrated by the photograph. Then you will fall on October 16, 2022, by which in Gregorian, that is April 2, 2021. Therefore, in April 2, 2021, the persecution, which is the blue Sunday law, begins, but Jesus Christ pleaded God the Father, hold. So the diagram of Beth-Hotep, that after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months, then follows the end of harvest, October 10, 2022, in Gregorian, that is March 27, 2021. The remnant, the 144,000 whose names left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Supposed to be the persecution will begin in April 2, 2021. But it is Jesus Christ who pleaded God the Father to hold the 4 winds. Because the remnant, those whose names left written in the Lamb's Book of Life at that time were not as yet sealed, or they were not yet fully protected according to the voice of inspiration. So the statement, to repeat again, in tract number 5, page 73, and seeing furthermore that death does not as yet flee any man, but still reigns over all, the 5 months are in consequence figurative time. So the 5 months, figurative. Yes, that is figurative because literal 5 months is only 150 days. But that is 1,050 days. Brothers and sisters. Now let us look at the timeanddeath.com. March 16, Bible calendar. March 16, 33 AD. You see, brothers and sisters, that is March 20. So this is not the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, because the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy is supposed to be March 16, must be September 4 on the Roman calendar. But that is March 20. That is, March 20 is April 1 in seasonal calendar. So that is only the groundwork. Whereas, let us look at March 16, 2021 Bible calendar. You see, that is September 4. The symbolical seasonal calendar, September 16. Brothers and sisters, we are now in the judgment for the living. The fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. That is pertaining to the heavenly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read again, brothers and sisters, the statement in track number 5, page 74. And extend from the crucifixion to a time when death shall flee from some men. Or in other words, the term extend from the crucifixion. So that crucifixion is no longer literal. That is the extension of the 5 symbolical months. The word extension meaning another 5 symbolical months. The first one is the groundwork. Since it was not fulfilled at that time, there must be extension, another 5 symbolical months. But that crucifixion is no longer literal, but symbolical and figurative. But we already find out that is September 4, 2020. In Bible calendar, that is March 16, 2021. In seasonal calendar, that is September 16. So what is the occurrence? Brothers and sisters, let us go back again to the diagram of Betty Haunted. Fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Now let us go to here. The day of reckoning. Matthew 25 verse 19. What is the day of reckoning? Blotting out of names. Now let us read here. Track number 3. Page 8. So there must come a day of reckoning, a day when the names of those who are found unworthy of eternal life will be blotted out of the Lamb's book of life, a proceeding for which the only correct term can be investigative judgment. The day of reckoning, the blotting out of names. So that is the illustration in the diagram. Brothers and sisters, September 16 precedes that final day of atonement, the end of harvest, judgment. And this is the only year. Because if this is not the year, you will count another 5,837 years to repeat such occurrence that September 4 is March 16 in Bible calendar, which is the symbolical September 16, Friday, September 4. And also, September 16 in seasonal calendar. And besides that, March 27, 2021 is figurative 40. Let us go back again to our that diagram concerning March 27? No. Let's go back again. What number is that? 2021, March 27. Number 8, 174. So, to show to you, brothers and sisters, this March 27, 2021, Saturday, in Bible calendar, actually that is October 10, 2022. That is the October 10 in the diagram of Beating Hotel. And look at brothers and sisters. March 27. In April 1831 AD, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there are 13 remaining days. Then 13 plus 27 equals 40. The commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary, October 22, 18 plus 22 equals 40. The end part of that cleansing of the sanctuary, March 27, 13 plus 27 equals 40. And you know, this will be repeated again. October 10, pattern number 2, Saturday, Bible calendar, which would fall on Gregorian March 27. Such occurrence will be repeated again on March 27, 7858 AD. 7858 minus 2021 equals 5,837. Therefore, it will take 5,837 years to repeat such occurrence to indicate that it is infallible, impregnable. Happens only once in a lifetime. It will never happen again. Whether you believe it or not, our obligation is only to inform all the 144,000 living saints that this coming March 27, 2021 is the final day of atonement, the cleansing of the sanctuary. All the names of those who rejected the present truth will be blotted out. Brothers and sisters, ponder deeply. Now let's go back again to our subject. The 5 symbolical months. Brothers and sisters, we have the groundwork and we have the antitype. The antitype is the extension, meaning another 5 symbolical months. Because in the groundwork, I would like to show to you. April 16, 31 AD to October 16, 34 AD. Supposed to be, it is ended on March 16, 33 AD. Therefore, this is the exact period of time, 210 days, by which vengeance is deferred to grace. But the fact is that when the 210 days expire, it is not the wicked that had been killed, but rather it is the righteous. So it could not be the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, but we have that groundwork. But in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, that must be from October 20, 2017 or April 16, 2019 up to September 4, 2020. This one is September 16 in seasonal and March 16 in Bible calendar. Then 210 days. April 2, 2021 in Bible calendar. It is October 16, 2022. Supposed to be the implementation of the Blue Sunday law must be implemented at this time, but Jesus Christ pleaded God the Father. According to the voice of inspiration. Brothers and sisters. Now let us Go back to track number 5. Track number 5. On page 74 and page 75. It says, during the 5 figurative months, the locusts were commanded to torment those who had not the seal of God, but not to kill them. This command implies that after the expiration of this period, the killing restriction will cease, and that from then on the wicked will be killed rather than tormented only. At that time, the 4 angels of Revelation 9:15 will have prepared themselves for to slay the third part of men. Now let us focus our attention to Revelation 9 verse 15. I would like to read track number 15. Page 62. Track number 15, beginning from page 61 and 62. Consequently, when this sealing work is completed, then the angels who hold the winds will let the winds blow. And the angels who are to hurt the earth, sea, and trees will then commence their given work. I would like to read 11 symbolic code. Number 7. Let me see. That is number 7. 11 symbolic code, number 7 on page 8. You notice that the angels are not told to hold the winds until Ezekiel 9 has all been fulfilled, but until the servants of God are sealed. Therefore, if there is any intervening time between the close of the sealing and the slaughter of Ezekiel 9, there is a possibility that the winds could start blowing during that time. So the blowing of the 4 winds precede the slaughtering. According to this reading, 11 symbolic code number 7, page 8. But what is slaughtering? The slaughtering of Ezekiel 9. Let us distinctly separate the slaughtering of Ezekiel 9 and the slaying in Revelation 7 because they have different localities. According to the shepherd's rod, as according also to the Bible. The voice of inspiration made it so plain that at the moment when the winds began blowing, at that time, the angels, the 4 angels in Revelation chapter 7 will commence their given work, but not the slaughtering angel in Ezekiel 9. Then it says, otherwise stated, to let the winds blow is to permit the 2-horned beast to decree that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Revelation 13:15. And to let the angels hurt is to allow the Lord's decree to take its course. If any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Revelation 14 verse 9 and 10. This warning is followed by the forecast the four angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the third part of men. Revelation 9:15. Both decrees will be enforced after the 144,000 are sealed. So let us distinctly separate the four angels in Revelation 7 and the five angels in Ezekiel 9 and also in Revelation 9 verse 15. Now, let us go back again to our reading in 12 symbolical. Number 2. Symbolic code number 2, page 12. It says, then those that seek death and cannot find it are God's people. They are to live on and on for eternity. At what time will they be made invulnerable to death? At what time? Our study today makes plain that it is during the fifth trumpet and before the sounding of the sixth trumpet. Brothers and sisters, the sounding of the sixth trumpet mentioned here is at the time when there is no more extension. I hope we understand the word extension. In 12 symbolic code number 2, page 3 and 4, it says, then during the period of the seventh trumpet, there will be no mystery yet to be finished, for it is to be finished during the sixth trumpet. The angel, therefore, is to be understood as stating simply that probationary time will extend only through the sounding of the sixth trumpet. And that is all, because the mystery of God is to be all finished at the time the seventh angel begins to sound. So, brothers and sisters, we know the sixth trumpet first sounded in 1833, according to track number 5. But that is not the last sounding of the sixth trumpet. Because the last sounding of the sixth trumpet is in the period of time by which there will be no more extension. No more extension. Because the extension is found in the period of the sixth trumpet. And since the antitypical 5 symbolical months it is an extension, therefore the fulfillment of that 5 symbolical months must be found in the period of the sixth trumpet, because the extension is found only in the sixth trumpet. The Shepherd's Rod itself says that this is a deep study or deep subject. Now let us read again. Our study today makes plain that it is during the fifth trumpet and before the sounding of the sixth trumpet, or I would like to, so that we will not be confused. Our study today makes plain that it is during the fifth trumpet. So, it is during the sounding in the extension of the fifth trumpet and before the last sounding of the sixth trumpet. to understand this statement if we will harmonize all the entire Shepherd's Rod publications. And I will explain it one by one on our next episode. And then it says, if God is going to do this during the period of the fifth trumpet, what period of the fifth trumpet? In the particular object in view. Not in the period of the fifth trumpet in the groundwork. Which is the antitype. By which the Shepherd's Rod used the term extend. The fifth trumpet extended to the time when the 144,000 will be already in existence. If God is going to do this during the period of the fifth trumpet, then the sealing of the 144,000 must take place in the period of the fifth trumpet. Now ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Does the sealing of the 144,000 that we know is the sealing on the earth without any sealing in the heavenly sanctuary? So it is very important to understand what the sealing is, when it is to be, and where it is to be. I would like to read that reading. And one is our pocket edition. On page 9. And how can one escape the slaughter unless one knows what the sealing or what the sealing is, what the marking is, when it is, and where it is to be? So that statement, where it is to be, meaning let us distinctly separate the sealing that occurred in the heavenly sanctuary and the sealing that occurred on the earthly sanctuary. Now, what sealing of the 144,000 that will take place in the period of the fifth trumpet? The first trumpet on the groundwork occurred in the days of Noah. But the first trumpet in the heavenly sanctuary, it must be after the first seal, by which commenced in October 22, 1844, the first seal. Because the first seal precedes the first trumpet. Track number 5, page 35. And the second seal precedes the second trumpet. Therefore, in the heavenly sanctuary, the fifth trumpet must be after the fifth seal in the heavenly sanctuary. Because that is the divine arrangement. And no wonder why B.T. Hotep says that unless 2SR 187, the seven seals and the sanctuary, 2SR 187, in order to make a proper application of the seven seals, we must have a better understanding of the heavenly sanctuary, of the heavenly sanctuary service, its origin and the object of its existence as taught by the earthly sanctuary built by Moses. Hebrews chapter 8 verse 5. In the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. So the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that it utters the impossibility that you could be able to make a proper application of the subject, the seven seals, unless you have a complete understanding concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. And since the seals and the trumpets go hand in hand, like the needle to the shuttle, according to track number 5, page 35. That admonition must be considered in this study. Saying in track number 8, page 5, so correctly to understand this prophetic event in its entirety, we must carefully differentiate the part which takes place in heaven from the part which takes place on earth. Carefully differentiate. Now let us read again, Tom Symbolic Code number 2, page 12. If God is going to do this during the period of the fifth trumpet, then the sealing of the 144,000 must take place in the period of the fifth trumpet. So that fifth trumpet must be the time when the 144,000 are already in existence. So it could not be in the groundwork. The fifth trumpet begins in the first advent of Jesus Christ. There is definite time of commencement and expiration of each trumpet. The only thing that overlap each other is the events and not the period. Otherwise, how could you distinguish the period of the fifth trumpet and the period of the sixth trumpet? For sure, brothers and sisters, in the groundwork, I would like to say 100% in 1844, the period of the fifth trumpet is already ended. As a matter of fact, it must be on 1833. But that is on the groundwork. How could it be? How could it be true that from 1844 backwards, there is a sealing of the 144,000 living saints, by which in reality, the 144,000 at that time was not yet even born? What does it mean by they had been made invulnerable to death? Meaning they had been given the seal of protection. Now, when would that be? That is after the expiration of the 5 symbolical months. But not in the groundwork, but in the antitype, in the particular object in view. So it says here, brothers and sisters, if God is going to do this during the period of the fifth trumpet, then the sealing of the 144,000 must take place in the period of the fifth trumpet and not in the sixth. Or I would like to say, brothers and sisters, therefore the sealing of the 144,000 in the heavenly sanctuary must take place in the period of the fifth trumpet in the heavenly sanctuary and not in the sixth. But the sealing of the 144,000 on the earthly sanctuary, it must be on the sixth trumpet and not on the fifth trumpet. That is very plain in 1SR. Here in 1SR, page 28, it says, we read in Revelation 8 and 9 of the 7 angels with the 7 trumpets. These 7 trumpets indicate the principal political and warlike events. So that is on the earth, not heavenly, which were transpired during the time of the gospel church. the sealing of the 144,000 belongs to the time of the sixth trumpet. But where is that sealing? On the earth. So the sealing of the 144,000 on the earth, that is during the period of the sixth trumpet, belongs to the sixth trumpet. But the sealing of the 144,000 in the heavenly sanctuary, by which those names that have been sealed, they are the only ones whose names to be left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. It is in the closing period of the fifth trumpet in the heavenly sanctuary. Because the sixth trumpet in the heavenly sanctuary commenced in the closing period of the sixth seal, which is represented by the altar. So, it's in absolute importance to have a complete knowledge concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Then it says, it is then before the sixth angel sounds, that is in the heavenly sanctuary, that some will have the experience of seeking death and not finding it. Because that coming day of atonement, March 27, 2021, the voices is no longer in heaven, but the voices came to earth. So whatever sounding, it must be on the earth. And heaven will listen to the earth, because at that time, Jesus Christ is already on the earth. And then it says, it is then before the sixth angel sounds that some will have the experience of seeking death and not finding it. This is a deep subject. If I am not making it clear to you, then you should ask questions, for it is very important. It is not a doctrine to talk about merely to pass the time. To repeat, it is in those days, in the fifth trumpet, that some will seek death and will not find it. But in the period of the sixth trumpet, no, not only some, but all of them will no longer to taste death. The mere fact that in the fifth trumpet, some only that will be made invulnerable to death indicates clearly that there are still saints to die. But when the sixth trumpet sounds, there will be no more death among God's people. The balance, the remaining saints are all living saints. We will continue this subject, brothers and sisters, in our next episode. And our main objective is to portray to you what will happen in 2021 and 2022. And for sure, without any doubts, this reading in 13 symbolic code, let me read to you, is fulfilling right now. Brothers and sisters, and no one could say that this statement is not fulfilling right now. It says, the Confederacy, 13 symbolic code 3 and 4, page 10, the Confederacy that we're studying this afternoon commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. And it is even more pointing to the United States of America. Because at the time when this trouble, more particularly what happening now in South China Sea, and if that trouble will escalate, for sure, there must be a law in the United States of America, the same with the Israelites in Israel today. That whether you are men or women, I think all 18 years old above, from 18 above, you'll be obliged to engage in battle to protect United States of America. Brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read this reading. 13 Symbolic Code 3 and 4, page 10. The confederacy that we're studying this afternoon commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. It is not the image of the beast, for this association precedes the image of the beast, and the confederacy is formed when the nations are girding themselves for war. Meaning, preparing, protecting themselves for war. And that statement is happening right now. Brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that we will study the prophecy. We will dig us deeper before everything is too late. We will continue this subject, brothers and sisters, and thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. I love you, brethren, and hope to see you in God's kingdom. Thank you very much. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.